Chapter 1. The Last Human. The war had lasted a century. When the Vexari Dominion invaded Earth, they expected an easy conquest. Humanity, fractured and divided, should have fallen within months. But we fought. We bled. And in the end we lost. But not before making them pay for every inch of soil. Now I was the last. Captain Elias Varrow, once a decorated officer of the Terran Defense Corps, now a ragged survivor hiding in the ruins of what used to be New Tokyo. The Dominion had declared victory, but they hadn't accounted for me. I crouched in the shadows of a collapsed skyscraper, my pulse rifle humming softly in my grip. The Vexari patrols had grown lax, their arrogance making them careless. They thought Earth was tamed. They were wrong. A flicker of movement caught my eye. A lone Vexari scout, her silver armor gleaming under the twin moons. She was young, barely more than a cadet, her 4 arms moving with the grace of her species. She scanned the ruins with an air of boredom, her elongated violet eyes barely paying attention. Perfect. Lunged. Before she could react, I had her pinned, my knife at her throat. She gasped, her bioluminescent markings flaring in shock. You're human, she hissed. Observant, I growled. She struggled, but I tightened my grip. You're no warrior, she spat. Just a scavenger, hiding in the dirt like a worm. Smirk. We'll see how those words age. Chapter 2. The hunted becomes the hunter. Her name was Kaylee's. I didn't kill her. Not yet. She was valuable, a living source of intel, a way to learn Dominion movements. I dragged her back to my hideout, an underground bunker lined with stolen tech and weapons. You won't break me, she sneered as I locked her in restraints. I don't need to, I said, activating a holoscreen. Footage of Vexari war crimes played. Entire cities glassed, prisoners executed, children torn from their homes. Her face twitched. Propaganda, she muttered. Is it? I leaned in. Or are you just afraid to admit you're fighting for monsters? She fell silent. Over the next few days, I let her see the truth. The mass graves, the slave camps, the lies the Dominion fed its people. Slowly, cracks formed in her defiance. Then one night she spoke. There's a facility, she whispered. A research station in the dead zone. They're working on something, a weapon. They call it Worldbreaker. My blood ran cold. If the Dominion had a superweapon, the last remnants of humanity, scattered across the stars, would never be safe. I had to destroy it. Chapter 3. The Dead Zone. Getting into the facility wasn't easy. Kaylee's surprisingly helped. She knew the security protocols, the patrol rotations. Whether out of guilt or self-preservation, she guided me through the wasteland until we reached the towering black spire of the research station. You'll die in there, she said as we crouched in the shadows. Maybe, I admitted. But if I take that weapon with me, it'll be worth it. She hesitated, then grabbed my arm. I'm coming with you. I raised an eyebrow. I'm not doing this for you, she snapped. I need to see this through. He nodded. Together we infiltrated the station. The halls were slick with organic Vexari architecture, pulsing with eerie light. Scientists and guards moved like ghosts, unaware of the predators in their midst. Then we found it. The Worldbreaker was a massive energy core, humming with unstable power. One detonation and it could crack a planet in half. Set the charges, I ordered. Kaylee's worked quickly, her hands steady. But as the timer ticked down, alarms blared. Chapter 4. You're no warrior. They surrounded us. A dozen Vexari elites, their weapons raised. At their head stood General Vexar, a hulking brute of a warrior. His scarred face twisted in a grin. The last human, he rumbled. How poetic. I leveled my rifle. You talk too much. The fight was brutal. Kaylee's fought beside me, her skills sharper than I expected. We carved through them, but more kept coming. Then Vexar struck. His blade sank into my side and I fell, gasping. Kaylee screamed, lunging at him, only to be backhanded aside. Vexar loomed over me. Pathetic. You were never a threat. I spat blood. Yeah, about that. The charges detonated. The room shook, the Worldbreaker destabilizing. Vexar's eyes widened in horror as the core began to rupture. Kaylee's dragged me to my feet. Run! We barely made it out before the facility exploded, a fireball lighting the sky. The Worldbreaker was gone. Epilogue, the warrior's legacy. Weeks later, aboard a stolen Vexari ship, Kaylee's tended to my wounds. You're insane, she muttered. Takes one to know one, I grinned. She shook her head, but there was respect in her eyes. The Dominion would hunt us now. But for the first time in a century, hope flickered in the dark. Because the last human wasn't alone anymore. And the alien girl who once said I was no warrior. Well, those words didn't age well. The stolen Vexari cruiser hummed softly as it drifted through the void, its engines set on a course for the outer rim, far from Dominion-controlled space. The ship's medical bay was dimly lit, the sterile glow of the overhead panels casting long shadows across the room. Kaylee's worked silently, her 4 hands moving with practiced precision as she adjusted the nanite injector strapped to my arm. I winced as the machine stitched my wounds shut, the pain a dull, persistent throb. The fight in the Worldbreaker facility had taken its toll. My ribs were still knitting back together, and the gash from Vexar's blade had left a jagged scar across my side. You're lucky to be alive, Kaylee's muttered, her violet eyes flicking up to meet mine. Smirk. Luck had nothing to do with it. She rolled her eyes, but there was no real annoyance in the gesture. Just exhaustion. And something else. Something I hadn't seen in her before. Respect. The ship's comm system crackled to life, a distorted voice slicing through the silence. Unidentified vessel. This is Dominion command. Power down and prepare to be boarded. Kaylee's froze. I reached for the rifle leaning against the medbay wall, but she stopped me with a sharp look. You can barely stand. Let me handle this. Before I could argue, she strode to the cockpit, her movements decisive. I limped after her, gripping the doorframe for support as she slid into the pilot's seat. The view screen flickered, revealing a Dominion battleship looming ahead, its weapon ports glowing ominously. Kaylee's exhaled sharply, then input a series of commands. What are you doing? Asked. Something stupid, she said. The ship lurched as she activated the emergency warp drive, a risky maneuver this close to a gravity well. Alarms blared as the engines screamed in protest. The Dominion vessel fired, plasma bolts streaking toward us. And then space twisted. The stars blurred into streaks of light as we hurtled into the slipstream, the cruiser shuddering violently. For a heartbeat, I thought the hull would buckle. Then silence. We were still alive. Kaylee slumped back in her seat, breathing hard. That was too close. I let out a rough laugh. You're insane. She glanced at me, a smirk tugging at the corner of her mouth. Takes one to know one. I grinned. Outside the view screen, the cosmos stretched endlessly, stars glittering like scattered embers. Somewhere out there, the remnants of humanity still fought. The Dominion still hunted. But for the first time in a long time, I wasn't alone. Kaylee's leaned forward, inputting new coordinates. Where to now, warrior? I met her gaze. Wherever they need us most. She nodded, and the ship surged forward. The last human and the alien who once thought him weak. Now the two most dangerous fugitives in the galaxy. And as for her words, "You're no warrior," they really didn't age well.